basically assess where we are in Pennsylvania. Where are we with combating extremism, exclusion, racism? Where are we? And for that, we are just privileged to have as our partner the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and its executive director, Chad Dion Laster, who you'll hear from just shortly. But we are really, really privileged to be able to join hands with that agency because they're the ones that are charged with keeping track, with battling and with standing up for victims of extremist attacks. And so I do want to acknowledge that the PA Media Group started this event 3 years ago. How, 4 years ago, sorry if I was there, so I should know. 4 years ago, out of that whole chaotic period with George Floyd, where we felt we needed to make a statement. And I really want to acknowledge right now, they probably don't want me to do it, the members, the staff, the people from the PA Media Group. We have Christina Bender, we have Teresa Donna, you'll hear from Evie, DeJesus, Josh, all of these. What stand up. If you're with the Pennsylvania, with the PA Media Group, please stand up. With PennLive, all of the people that have gone into making this event important. Thank you. We respect you. We acknowledge you. Your community, I know, respects you for this. So with that, we've gotten a little bit. I do want to acknowledge one more very important thing. To do these kinds of events, it takes community support, and we are really delighted to know that the Foundation for Enhancing Communities has stepped up to be a sponsor. So what could I ask the members of the the Foundation for Enhancing Communities to stand up and accept our sincere thanks for being a part of this event and for making it possible. Thank you. So with that, again, thank you for being here. It really means a lot, and it's making a statement at a time when a statement is needed. But for now, I'm going to turn this podium over to a very important person, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about. Look, let me just say this right off the bat. I can't do this gentleman justice. I really can't. This is a bio that and a resume that I'd be here all day. So I'm going to give you just about Chad. He's executive director of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, where he has legislatively delegated authority to investigate complaints alleging unlawful discrimination in areas of employment, housing, commercial property, education, and public accommodations. He's also a recent appointee to the President Biden's on education, equity, excellence, and economic opportunities for Black Americans. As a national expert, here you go, national expert in the field of American race relations, Mr. Lasker has worked on race, peace, and poverty-related issues in the United States of America, Africa, Canada, Israel, and Norway. He is a co-founder and current president of the University of Pennsylvania School of Social Policy and practices in Black Men at Penn, and the first Ivy League Black male it is on social workers. His many accolades include recognition by the Philadelphia Tribune as the most influential African American leaders from 2010 to 2020. Ebony Medal highlighted him as one of the young leaders of the future, under 30. Yes, Chad is in who's who among African Americans, 17th edition, as co Mike. All right, Chad, this is for you. Come on up.
I'm going to be very brief. Thank you so much, Joyce. Just a servant leader that um, one of the proudest accomplishments is being Maryland and Dale Lassiter, and at this point in my life, being the husband of Stella Lassiter, since we request because she's not able to be here. I'm excited about today, our fourth one. This was something that we started 4 years ago. Fundamentally and foundationally knew that Pennsylvania had a lot of challenges. And in particular, Pennsylvania typically ranked in the top 10 among white supremacist groups, not just assembling, but creating division in PA. You've heard me say this in the previous ones we had before, that former Democratic strategist for the Clinton administration, James Carville, would liken Pennsylvania to you have Philadelphia on one side, you have Pittsburgh on another side, and in between you have Kentucky. What we decided to do 4 years ago was we became pregnant. We became pregnant and we gave birth to this piece of justice. We believe that you have Philadelphia, you do have Pittsburgh, but in between you have people who are fighting peace and justice every single day. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't first and foremost acknowledge the PHRC staff who are present. They are social change agents, they are social justice warriors. And if you are not too bashful, please stand up so that you can be acknowledged. Everyone that works for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. That means you while you work for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. These are the individuals who every day, along with full complement of 80 people at this present time, regional officers, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, who are responsible. We're responsible for 13 million people. The weight of 13 million people in the Commonwealth is on our shoulders as we fight to ensure their rights to live, to work free of any form of discrimination. So I have an appeal for you, all of you today. Reach out to those that you who are in positions of power to write them letters if you want to share with them the importance of our work, that we cannot continue to do this. The people of the common with the current that we have. We are so very thankful for Governor Shapiro, who in the last budget gave us 5 additional complement that was afforded to us. And we were able to launch a civil rights division, the first of its kind civil rights division for these type of commissions. The name of it is CROPS, Civil Rights Outreach Coordinators. Some of us predate, CROPS, but we remember a time where it was McGruff. Take a bite out. So that's what we're doing right now. But I just want to end by simply saying we have two reports. I'm not going to get into extremism, but we have two reports because the person that's going to be speaking today, Heather McGhee, is a champion in this space. And for those of us who do this work at the PHRC, just in general, we need to be poured into. And so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time sharing data and things of that nature. What I will say is that we have two reports that I think is very important to, so if you haven't already. It's our PHRC annual report, and it will give you the qualitative and quantitative data as it relates to discrimination in the business of public accommodations, commercial property, housing, employment, education, so forth. It will share with you our beloved community tour. It will share with you the way that we're trying to fight for justice, the themes of peace and justice, with some social justice initiatives. And then also this Enough report. This Enough report was a report where Senator Art Haywood and myself traveled 3,000 miles to 15 of the Apache schools to address racism on college campuses, racism on college campuses, racism on college campuses. Um, Not microaggressions, not passive aggressive behavior, but racism on college campuses. Pointed at students of color, specifically African American students. The report is very revealing. So we should focus on Islamophobia. We should focus on anti-Semitism. We should focus on AAPI hate, xenophobia, transphobia, homophobia. But this democracy continues to have an anti-black racism. That's not an indictment against others, but it's just something we need to focus on. In PA, we also have white rage, white violence, white anger, challenge as well. We see it every day, and David speaks to that. But there is peace and justice. Martin Luther King, as I said, that we must accept. Finally, this will never lose it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ed. You're always inspiring. Thank you for being here and being a partner in this most important work. And now I'd like to call someone who I work with, but who's become such a dear friend. Someone, the name all of you know, your reader of PennLive. And that Evie is going to come. I know she's a stellar reporter. She's hard hitting, she's hard charging, she's fearless, but she's also the chair of our diversity at the PhD. She's doing a phenomenal job. She has the honor to introduce our keynote speaker.
Heather McGhee designs and promotes solutions to inequality in America. She has testified in Congress, drafted legislation, and has become a regular contributor on shows like Meet the Press. For nearly 2 decades, she helped build a nonpartisan think and do tank, serving 4 years as president. Her New York Times best-selling book, The Sum of Us, was longlisted for the National Book Award and for the Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Nonfiction. The book's cross-cutting message of an economic cost of racism to us all garnered the RFK Book Award at the Torchlight Prize for the best business book of the year. Heather is currently chair of the Board of Color of Change, the country's largest online racial justice organization. It's my pleasure to introduce Heather McGhee.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's been here this afternoon. As we said, there are a lot of places you could be, a lot of things you could be scrolling, a lot of things you could be watching. Thank you so much to the city council that is getting out there in person, being thinking deeply about the challenges and opportunities that face here at home. And I never take it for granted. Never take it for granted. There's so much moving for our attention right now, and it seems as if the big and the important connections are almost the easiest ones to sort of swipe by. So thank you so much. I want you to give yourselves a round of applause for being here this afternoon. So have been really reflecting lately. I'm in sort of a pivoting moment in my own life. I'm 6.5 months pregnant. Thank you, thank you. It weren't easy, y'all. So thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I am celebrating the 4th year of my book, The Sum of Us. I hit the road for the journey to write the book and then hit the road document the podcast, expounding on some of the themes in the book. And then I've basically been on the road ever since, talking to as many people as I can in places just like this all across the country. Because I love to do it. I love to meet my fellow Americans. I love to hear their inspiring stories. And I think that it is crucial that we all have some big picture frameworks to understand what's going on in this society. But I'm about to take a moment, right? I'm about to take a moment to slow down a little bit. Literally, you're not allowed to fly anymore. So actually, a whole chunk of the country. And really been thinking about this whole phenomenon that obviously I have been in my small community, and also of course, and I wanted to share with you all this afternoon. And what lessons travel, which really have taken me to 50 states and mostly to mid-sized communities.
because that's been my emphasis to try to be in places where folks like me with my message are often are. And so, just briefly, for those of you who are not familiar with my work, who haven't read The Sum of Us, there are three core and I will say that even though I wrote it from 2017 to 2021, the last 4 years have really been just further deepen my commitment to the belief and the research that these three ideas are really central to understanding who we are as Americans. So the first big idea is that we are being held back as a society, and particularly my career has been in economic policy, drafting legislation, testifying, and trying to advance solutions to economic inequality to make the American dream more real for more people. And I sort of backed into understanding the centrality of race and racism to our economy. And it was because even though all of the economic data, all the spreadsheets and white papers in the world were pointing us towards a set of investments that we needed to make as a people, a set of policies and solutions that would make life easier for most folks. There's an underlying story that pushes us away from those solutions. And that underlying story is a lie, and it has no sort of basis in economics, but it's a powerful one. And that story is the story that we are all trapped in zero sum game. Now, with a zero sum game, a zero sum game is one in which there's no mutual progress, right? If one player scores a point, the other player loses it, right? So it only ever sums up to zero. But more broadly, as a worldview, zero sum worldview says that there's like a fixed pie of well being. And if I get a bigger slice, you must get a smaller slice. You're nodding your head because you recognize the story, right? This underlying kind of paradigm, and you see examples of it in our political rhetoric on the hour. And it's really important to understand that most of the things that we hear talk about in society, they kind of fit various underlying frameworks, big stories. And the zero sum story is one of the loudest, it's one of the most well marketed, and it's one of the most persistent. It says that they are coming for you. There's an us and a them, right? You all can think of many, many examples just from the last 24 hours, I'm sure, of this zero sum story. Now, of course, the problem with the zero sum story is that it's not true, as I said. In fact, economists look at our society more like a regular sports game, not a zero sum. A regular sports game where you want all of your players on the field scoring points for your team. You're not rooting against anyone. You don't want anyone sidelined due to debt, discrimination, disadvantage. The problem is the zero sum story says we're not all on the same team. Even though economists, including those at the big bank Citigroup, right, these are not fringe left wing folks, they calculate that inequality is costing us points. Right? When you don't have all your players on the field scoring, what your team's not going to score points. They calculated that just the black economic divide over the past 20 years has cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion. Right? It makes so much sense. But the zero sum story says, no, you've got to hold some people back for other people. So I think it's really important that that zero sum story be one we name, we identify, call out. And here's the tricky part for we who believe in freedom. We've got to make sure not to fall into that same story as well. And that's the really tricky part because even though the research shows that zero sum story is a dominant world in the US, it is a racialized one. And at the story often goes that it's racial and ethnic groups that are competing with one another for pieces of that pie, right? It's also racialized in the sense that the research says white Americans are far more likely to fall through that zero-sum prism than are Americans. Now, when I came across that survey finding, I was surprised, and I wanted to really interrogate it because there's nothing biological about zero-sum thinking, right? It's not the lower melanin content you have in your skin, the more possible it is for you to see the world through a zero-sum lens, right? It's nothing biological or negative. Every belief comes from the story we've been told. And so I wanted to ask, well, who's telling this story? To my white brothers and sisters, it's saying that my progress is threatened. Who's selling that story? How are the people selling that story profiting from the sale of that story, economically, politically? What might it be cost by that? And so it's so important that those of us who are making these broad demands and claims and calls to the beloved for peace and justice, that we make sure we remember how loud the zero sum story is in the ears. And so we've got to make sure to say the whole part. Now, what do I mean by say the whole part? When we say racism means that if you are a black mother, you're 9 times more likely to die. And we say that there are health disparities, that communities of color and immigrants are far more likely to be struck by workplace accidents, pollution, and asthma, and various types of cancer mortality. When we say that housing is more unaffordable if you are a person of color than if you are white American, you've got to finish the story and say that the world that we are seeking to change, the world we're seeking to create, is not one in which white people can afford housing, where white people are getting into housing. God no, right? We are looking for a world, fighting for a world, and inviting everyone into the vision of a world where no mothers are losing their lives, where everyone has a roof over, where everyone goes to work and is safe and can breathe clean air and water. We have to see the whole, and we have to remind folks that when we say we want to end racism, that that will ultimately be good for you. When we say we want to create a world free of fear and trauma and hate, and it is not enough to stop before you get that sentence. Not when the zero sum story is over. So that's the first big lesson that I learned on my journey. And then the second one is really, in some ways, a way to paint the picture of what it costs all of us to live in a society where we have not healed the old wounds of explicit, deliberate, systemic racism. And that is the story of what happened to many of the country's lavishly funded resort style public schools. Now, stay with me. I am not a person who is an expert, and yet I grew to understand the power of these stories and helping to open folks up to what we all lose to racism. Now, this country had nearly 2,000 of these kinds of big public schools, and they're not hard because there's so few left. It's hard to picture them, ones where they could hold thousands of swimmers at a time. They were part of a building boom of public goods in the New Deal era, like roads and bridges and public work, right? And they were, in some ways, kind of like this beautiful, glittering reflection of a deeper ethos, a deeper story we told ourselves then, which was that we messed up during the Gilded Age of inequality. We messed up during the Great Depression. And now we were going to use government to fix it. In the 1930s, we said, you know what? has a right and, in fact, a responsibility to ensure a decent standard of living for her people. So there was this new era of these kinds of public good. And it wasn't just roads and bridges and schools. It was also economic public good, like social security for the elderly, right? Like a massive investment in creating enough housing that working people could afford. We know we live in those places, right? That was the last time we made it, right? And on top of the supply of housing, it was also really a huge for unprecedented idea that working people should be able to own. It was a government policy that insured and backstopped and regulated these financial mortgages. It was really a great, and it worked, right? We had the highest ownership rate in the developed world for much of the 20th century. That economic public goods also created a really robust land grant college system. The idea that people could go to college for free, GI Bill in the 1940s, right? All of this worked together to create the greatest middle class the world ever seen, the highest standard of living in the world in the 1950s, the American dream. And yet, everything I just described, all of those economic public were racially segregated in one way or another. Social Security, right, was designed to ensure that people would no longer have to work in poverty until they died. It included two job categories that moved in a Jim Crow delegation to the meeting, right? So domestic workers and agricultural workers. That massive investment in housing I spoke of was predicated on the never substantiated assumption that Black people would be too much of a credit risk. And this is the FDR progressive, New Deal government included the requirement that the subsidies to private developers building loans, that they include racial clauses in the deeds, not just in the South, but all across the country, that said that these subsidized lower cost would only be available to people who hold the Caucasian. They drew maps of all the biggest metro areas in the country. These became known as redlining maps, and surveyed them down to the block level for their racial and ethnic character, and said that if there were high Negro concentration, that they were hazardous for living. So we had a greater part of a century exclusion of Black people, Black borrowers, and business owners from being able to access cheap, affordable loans and credit. Now, there's another model, right? The GI Bill was totally race neutral on its face. It didn't say anything about Negroes and Caucasians, and yet benefits of the GI Bill veterans were in the highly segregated housing and higher education sectors. So many veterans availed themselves. So we had a whole system that I think of like this beautiful public pool, and yet it had a whites only sign. And actually, public pools also had a whites only sign on them. They did, but they were usually segregated, not just in Mississippi, but in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and New York. Right? It was sort of this huge taboo. You could not have people of different races swimming together. In the civil rights, Black families and allies to the court said, okay, now it's actually our tax dollars too that have been funding those public goods all along. And in the case of swimming pools, we want our children to be able to swim safely too. And federal courts began to issue desegregation orders for these public swimming pools. But in response, many of them, towns and cities across the country, again, I'm here to say, not just the Jim Crow South, decided to drain their public pools rather than integrate them. They literally drained out the water and backed up truckloads of dirt and gravel. Sometimes towns would not just destroy their public good right away, right? And close them, but they would lease the public pool to a private entity who can then discriminate, have like a membership process. It's only included white people. They often YMCA partners. They'd lease it to the YMCA for $1 so they can still discriminate. This is our history, folks. But when I tell the story, I became obsessed with these closed public pools. It's really about what it costs all of us. When a town destroys a public good rather than shares it, or makes it a private membership club rather than a place where people can gather. One of the oddest moments in my early book tour was when I got this insistent reporter, you insistent reporter, would not take no for an answer. And the only reason I was saying no is because he was a reporter for a magazine that I wasn't very familiar with, called the Backyard Swim and Spa. It was a trade publication for people who sell, service, and install backyard swimming pools. And I was like, no, I don't know why he would talk to me. But he was insistent because he was doing a cover story that was a racial reckoning of the history of the industry of backyard private swimming pools, which really took off in the wake of public pool injury. So think about what that means as a metaphor. We drain the pool of public resources. If you're rich enough, you can build your own backyard pool. That to me is the economic history of the last 50 years. Right? Drained pool politics where we stop funding things that are public goods that make it possible for all to do better. And we shift it on individual families and good luck. Now that story of the economy is one I knew without this sort of racial lens from studying law and economics. It's very important for me to be explaining to audiences all over the country over the past 3 years that drained pool politics is why their health care is so unaffordable. Drained pool politics is why it costs more to send your kid to college than it does for you to buy a house. Drained pool politics is why we have a society that sees the existential threat of chaos and my heart goes out right now to the people who are in Florida experiencing a double whammy of hurricane. And yet we still can't get it together to do the basic stuff we need to do. Not because it's about individuals not using control. It's about people coming together and government making the kind of changes we need to keep our future. Right? All of this unwillingness to come together and find common solutions to our common problems, basically swim in the same pool, is costing us all. And so drained pool politics has been this very helpful way for me to explain who oftentimes grew up with the idea that it's a backyard swimming pool or no. You know, they sort of expect it. We pay for childcare, transportation, housing, college, healthcare, retirement, 401ks, right? All of that we do own. To be able to say it used to be glory, we can all swim. There's a possibility of something we could all come together and do it better, easier, more frequently. It's been challenging. It's been powerful to helping people disrupt a little bit of that zero sum thing that we all have stake in a future vestiges of racism. And then finally, the third big concept is me trying to paint a picture of what that looks like. And that is the why I'm so hopeful, what has given me hope over these past 3 years, and what I know there are examples of all over the country. And they do not make the news, and they very rarely make the social media feed, but they are stories of people, ordinary people, who roll up their sleeves and link arms across race to solve problems that we simply can't solve. And that concept of people coming together and being able to win because of that cross racial, I call the solidarity dividend. Solidarity is the idea that you're going to stand with your neighbor who isn't you, doesn't look like you, same as you. You're going to, and he's going to have yours. You're going to stand shoulder to shoulder. Know that ultimately an injury to one is an injury to us. And then, of course, the dividend is the real gain, right? Because, I couldn't let go of that economic stuff, right? We want to actually gain. We want to get more. We want to move. We want better lives for our children. We can gain when we come together. And so I collected stories in the book, and then I went back out on the road the following year, only new stories, solid. And I will tell you that there was something so powerful in training my eyes and the microphone and the place of the podcast only on hope. Because we know what it sounds like, the hate, the extremism, school board meetings and chaos, the crazy thing, yelling at each other and fighting. We know that is actually what the algorithm is pushing us. That is what the local news, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That is what people with some of the most powerful megaphones in society are showing. That is not this country. In fact, you look at all of the most divisive issues of the past few years. Look at sound research and public opinion polling. It's like 8 out of 10 Americans don't want to ban books. They want to know all of our history, the good and the bad. We're big enough and strong enough to handle our own. You know, they don't want to kill diversity programs. They think that diversity is America's strength. And they don't want a privilege-based economy and privilege-based hiring and privilege-based schools. They want to know that their children and their neighbors' children will have a shot because they're the best and the brightest. They don't want the game to be rigged again. They know what it looks like for their life. So this is what gives me hope. So many stories of people coming together, being willing to have, I want to say, curiosity, think differently, to listen, to learn, to see themselves in their neighbors, even though there was no reason to. That spirit exploded in 2020. It gave birth to events like this. But I'm here to tell you, it didn't go away. People didn't go unsee what they saw. They didn't unlearn what they learned. In fact, they got kind of pissed that they've been lied to. And they doubled down on their commitment to doing something. And one of the most powerful things that a narrow faction can do is convince us more and our society is so polarized. We're split 50-50. I'm just clear. Yes, there are basically two candidates. Oftentimes we're split 50-50. But if you look at the underlying values in our country, right, you've really got a durable, multiracial majority that wants our country's best days, that still believes that we're a can-do nation, that hears and learns more about our racist past. And I'm clear that this is people of all backgrounds who learn more about our racist past in the past few years. Not just like, oh, black folks already knew everything and white folks are just catching up. No, we've all been lied to at our public education, right? We've all had the kind of version of America that doesn't really come to grips, not just with how bad it was, but therefore the flip side of that, which is how strong to be where we are, how resilient we must be to be descendants of slaveholders and slaves working together, loving one another, making a society for our children together. Right? When you lie about the first part, you don't get to revel in the glory. And that is what's so important for those of us who believe in freedom to keep singing to one another how far we've come, how strong we are, how clear-eyed we have to be about working together. We're stuck here now. You know that old saying, we may have come here on different boats, yes, but we're all in the same boat now, right? Right? We're stuck here. And because of climate change and war and trade policies, there is going to be someone here in these small towns with a tie to everything. But you know what? I think that's what many of our founders themselves were from every community in their known world thought this place could be. And so I think that we really have to paint this picture of a society where we're beyond the zero sum. Call it out when we see it. We show people how silly it is, how little, how small. We remind everyone that with drained full politics, we're all worse off. And we point a picture of a world in which we all win, when we stand all win. True dividends through cross-racial solidarity. It's a winning story. I've seen it and experienced it convert people in VFW halls and Rotary clubs and church-based country for the past years. I've been very privileged to have had that picture of America, to know those Americans in their curiosity and their hunger and frustration with what is and their desire for something better. I just want to celebrate you all for your commitment to that, to peace and justice here in a place where the zero sum story is very loud. I know. But you also know that so much of what's beautiful about Central Pennsylvania and about this whole state is the legacy of a different way of thinking, of people building things together, people investing in the future, they didn't know what the future looks like. So I just want to thank you for your time, for your commitment, for your passion, and say God bless you all.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
We're taking a picture.
Please.
Try not to mess up my mascara.
I really am. And you left me with such hope, such a feel good, right? We all can not. We're good people, just trying to survive. That's it, right? Trying to survive. So thank you, Heather. Thank you again. Thank you, Chad, for making this possible for us. I'm kind of full right now, so but we have to move on because a huge part of this program is also reaching out into our community to lift up those people who are examples of just what are trying to do the right thing, trying to better our communities, to bring us together. And I don't have the privilege of introducing. We have actually some wonderful people from the staff who are going to do those introductions. But I'm now going to ask for our first awardee. I'm going to ask a young reporter who's been with us over years now, but she's really making a mark in our region. Zaria time.
Please, Zaria, come forward. Yes.
Hello, everyone. So, I am going to be introducing a special organization called Wild Heart Ministries. Wild Heart Ministries is located in the heart of Allisonville, a served neighborhood in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The founders of Wild Heart, Tam and Christina Hermit, moved into the Allison Hill community in the 2013. After living there for a few years and getting connected to their neighbors in Allison Hill, Wild Heart was founded in April of 2016. It works to promote awareness of the issues within the neighborhood and to rally people and corporate support to help a neighborhood that has a large number of families living below the federal poverty line. Since 2017, Wild Heart has been instrumental in advancing revitalization efforts in Allison Hill by forming strategic partnerships within the community and championing the cause for transformation in the Hill. Wildfire provides services and opportunities for those who want to impact the community and see their city transform of kindness and meaningful service. Volunteers, residents, city officials have been working together to hope love the Hill. They led many neighborhood trash drives, removing more than 2.8 million pounds of trash within 136 city blocks. Their efforts have also helped more than 2,692 families, helping reduce crime and increase neighborhood pride. Today, Wild Heart Ministries is addressing the pressing needs of food security and affordable housing, initiating the process of restoring and properties that have been abandoned and blighted for years. Join our editorial board and readers in paying Wild Heart Ministries. I would love to introduce the founders of Wild Heart Ministries, Shannon and Christine. Please.
Um, but yeah, we're so honored to be a part of this. We're always grateful that we're justice increasing community like Allison Hill, where we live, raise our family, three girls in that community, lived there for 11 years. Yeah, it just takes talent to jump out, be the solution, be the answer, be that helping hand. And unfortunately, like in a community like ours, like required, it's just to give that helping hand. And we have the amazing privilege of working with over 12,000 volunteers to get them give that opportunity, give them that opportunity to come in and make an impact. And as we talk to countless people, like you're saying, there's more than same page that get each other. And I think that's the hope that we can have moving forward. That real change starts by figuring out more than that's what I love about what we do. It's very accessible to everybody. We're like, come, you can make a difference, and that's actually um, thinking that. But I tell this story just to show, like when we went down this alley, we knew like illegal dumping and where people literally live in dump sites. And the crazy part is that we find kids like back there playing in dump sites, and it's hard to say like that happens here and here. The reality is there are those injustices that happen. And um, we get to be a part of that story to see those lives change and in a small way, but now we're moving on to having fresh produce and the need for affordable housing, and all that came from just, hey, we see this going on. We can be a part of the solution. So I just encourage you to be a part of like beyond just talking about it, let's do the work it's going to take to actually see communities like transformed. And it doesn't take, it seems like an overwhelming issue when we talk about injustice across America and the racial divide. But like, guys, like we have the opportunity to really make that impact in a positive light. It doesn't take, it seems so hard, but you say, hey, you can take a pleasure, hey, you can get involved, you can be a part of that story. In the past 8 years, we've seen a huge change. And we see that moving forward because we're willing to do that bridge, pull somebody's hand and say, hey, you can come on over, you can be a part of the solution. We need you. We need everybody to show up, like you're saying. We need those businesses. We need those ideas. We need communities across this country to really come up. Um, so thank you. What's the time?
Okay, it looks like we have another introduce. This is a reporter who's a reporter is after my own heart. He is going after stuff, he is uncovering stuff, but more than that, he's going to save lives. Of Joshua Obama about the Dauphin County prison. You need to go back and read them all so that you understand. And yeah, Josh, come on up.
I really appreciate that. It's my distinct honor to get to introduce the Pennsylvania Prison Society, the people who are doing the work right and right now. I'm really serving the people inside the jails and prisons. The Pennsylvania Prison Society describes itself as an unbiased expert source of information on Pennsylvania prisons. It has been the state's official advocate for the health, safety, and dignity of all incarcerated people for more than 200 years. The Society is the sole organization in the country with legal authority to visit any prison. It helps resolve individual requests from prisoners for assistance and it reports without bias what is happening behind bars. The organization also provides assistance to the families of incarcerated people, working to maintain vital support networks for incarcerated people. Staff and volunteers at Pennsylvania Prison Society also provide a window into the closed world of prisons, exposing and addressing the most serious issues. The Pennsylvania Prison Society's main office is located in Philadelphia, but its volunteers can be found in every county across the country. Through its extensive volunteer network, the organization is able to assist people in jails and prisons throughout PennLive and the Patriot News join our editorial board to the Pennsylvania. I'm not sure who's. Are you up, John?
Thank you all. I think Josh has summed up our organization very quickly. There's not much more for us to say. We're part of that solitary dividend that Heather mentioned.
I just want to thank
Destiny
Joyce.
Brown.
It gives me great privilege and honor to go into the prisons and to not look at color of a man's skin, but to look at we're human beings. And there goes you and I, but for the grace of God. They may have committed a crime, and some of them are there, and they didn't commit a crime, and we still have to advocate. I love what I do. I love the people there. What happened? Only thing that I can do is thank God it's not me, but I'm still going to do what I got to do for them and advocate, be that voice for those that feel they don't have. Thank you.
Is Tom Ennis still with you guys?
Once again, the Pennsylvania, the PennLive Patriot News of PA Media Group really making especially to our youth, because you're the ones who took the time to send in your nominations, and they were spectacular. Then our editorial took the final stab at deciding who would be the finalists. So this was definitely a team event, one that our whole. Now I am going to ask a former honoree, uh, who is so well known in our community. She and who just tirelessly gives of herself to help single moms, at-risk youth, to help just in any way that she can in our community. And she's known for this. She's known for being so loving, so caring, and so selfless. And that's why she and her husband, the Reverend Nathaniel and Pat Gadsden, were former awardees of Peace and Justice in PA. We're asking Pat to come forward to introduce our next honoree individual. That was quite an interest. Well, having someone who got the podium. I have to remember that. Yes, most definitely. Well, again, we welcome everyone this afternoon. Good news and live for the honor that they themselves had some years ago and received this really outstanding award. Also recognize our last year's winner. Come on with me. Both of us, okay, to recognize this lady that's being honored. I've known Representative Strauss for a number of as being a building being a tenant at the Pennsylvania Council of Churches, where I had the opportunity to really interact with Sandy more than I knew Sandy prior to the building there. But it's very more what we know all of her in the this community prior to her retirement. It's lovely to have conversations with her, and I learned about her husband. He didn't really know just having conversations with her for years. I know this lady also has known her for a while. And so you do this for us? Thank you.
Cindy is a dear friend of mine, and I know that of her fierce commitment to justice, which is grounded in her deep spirituality. So she's a blessing to this whole community. The Reverend Cindy Strauss has spent years raising her voice in Pennsylvania's halls of power on behalf of voice. She's been a passionate advocate for human rights abroad and civil rights at home, as Director of and Ecumenical Outreach for the Pennsylvania Council of Churches. Reverend Strauss has defended the rights of poor communities from the impact of climate change. And she's preached about the duty of people of all faiths to fight racism, sexism, and extremism. She is very recently retired from the Pennsylvania Council, but has not stopped her engagement in community interfaith given her more time. She recently led organization of the annual Interfaith Commonwealth Prayer Service that was hosted this year at Bethel Temple. And that's an event that she has led for years. Reverend Strauss is also an active member of PennLive's editorial board and regularly engages in asking questions of those holding positions of power. PennLive and the Patriots join our editorial board leaders in paying tribute to Reverend Strauss.
I want to say how deeply honored I am to be here. It's not people like us that are doing all this work. We do this together. We're all better off when we're all better. So it's really important that we do this work together. I just wanted to say briefly, I was really um, privileged to be shaped the happenings in the late 1960s in Memphis. I was living in Memphis when Dr. King was assassinated, and learning of the injustices that existed, which I never saw because Memphis was such a segregated place at that point. So I was grateful for that and Girl Scouts of all things because I was introduced to people who weren't like me at Girl Scouts those summers. So that was a privilege. But as I said, we don't like to see myself as more leader and educator. My role is to help others to be able to do this work as well. So I'm deeply honored to be recognized for the little bit that I can do. And just one message before I finish. This is a consequential election year. It is incumbent upon every one of us to get out there. So vote and do something. So thank you.
Well, what a time. Oh, what a time. Thank you again to our honorees, to all of you who came out today. Okay. I also want to, from the bottom of my heart, to ask, I don't leave you about to stay. I want to highlight Megan, who's such a hard worker back there making sure this gets streamed out. Megan, I want to, our photographers who are there, TJ, and I forget your name, but they're all there working behind the scenes for us. Dan Glider, forgive me, it's an elder moment. Dan Glider and TJ are the photographers. I want to make sure that I know. I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning, and where's Zoe? Zoe, she's out there as well. Crystal, help me with the letters, y'all. Y'all Crystal, she helped the letters. Christine, an excellent editor, right? Teresa Bonner, who works hard managing the newsroom, right? Right? And so I just want to thank everyone who's had a part. I'm having a thing. There's one other person right there I need to acknowledge. That's that Kelly. Kelly. You know I wouldn't want to leave you out. Kelly is fabulous, right? And oh, is that Jeffrey Lord there? Jeffrey, part of our editorial board. If there are other members of our editorial board, would you please stand? I want to acknowledge you. I know Jeffrey's here and Pat's here and Reverend Strauss. These are the members. So please stand. Let us acknowledge and applaud. Thank you. And I'm just hoping I haven't missed anyone, but I might have missed one person. Did I miss one person? Well, my lovely husband. Thank you, lovely husband. But no, I want to acknowledge the president. First of all, please stand and get your accolades. Because y'all, this couldn't happen if we didn't have the support of the people at the top, right? So thank you all for your inspiration directly from Ms. McGhee. Let's go out. Let's make sure the whole school is known. There's a big enough pie for all of us. We all want to be in that school, right? Thank you all. See you next year. Bye.